one of the true greats, Charlie Kirk. If you're going to take it to the place of violence, that means to me that you could no longer argue with his ideas. You had to silence his ideas.
Especially given the nature of what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a public execution. There needs to be public justice.
Coming to you live from the Campione Law Studios, the podcast allegedly brought to you by your handsome host, Christopher Campione, and my two wonderful, outrageously smart, gentle beings, aggressive lawyers, my partners, Kirby Johnson and Michael Belonge.
Good intro right there.
Thank you, buddy. It took me a couple minutes to work up the energy for that.
That was very nice.
Never tried picking up the microphone before.
Yeah.
But coming off of a hot one, yesterday, as you guys know, you guys don't, we had the legendary, future Hall of Famer, Fred Taylor in the house.
Freddie T.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
For an episode of the unofficial Jaguars podcast, right? Still waiting on that cease and desist letter. But until we do, we are here to bring to you guys fun conversation,
Absolutely.
good topics. And yeah, do we want to jump into it? Or, I mean, my mind has been absolutely conquered and devoured since Wednesday of last week by what happened to, on just a serious note, one of the true greats, Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, bad stuff like this happens. Doesn't typically like affect me to the point where I carry it with me. But like it was at least 48 hours before I could truly think of more than just what had happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was terrible to hear. It just, besides of whatever you feel about Charlie Kirk, just the people being so desensitized to somebody that just got murdered in broad daylight.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it was a really bad tone, I feel like, for the country.
Yeah. And I mean, I try not to get too political on this podcast, and I don't think that we're really steering into that territory with this. But as a Christian, Charlie was one of the good guys, in my opinion. The people that I think have a problem with what he said are people that didn't hear him in context. I've seen some of the clips that they cut, and it's a guy that is principled. It's a guy who speaks his mind, whether you agree with him or not. But I think more importantly, I never saw something from him that came from a place of hate. And the way that he talked to people, even whether you disagreed with him vehemently or not, it was always from a place of respect. And he was always trying to have conversation. It was...
No, I totally agree. I wasn't somebody either that really followed Charlie Kirk too much, but I have seen some clips, seen him speaking, and like I said, regardless of what you feel, at the end of the day, he was never somebody I thought was, overly aggressive or spewing hate or really the person that, would be assassinated, to be honest. So it's pretty crazy.
But to me, it made sense why. Like, if you're going to assassinate somebody, right, if you're going to take it to the place of violence, that means to me that you could no longer argue with his ideas. You had to silence his ideas. It's just, ugh.
Well,
kills me.
Yeah, I mean, it's what happened is an absolute tragedy. There's no question about it. And setting aside the politics or even his position on certain issues, I think what happened last Wednesday was really sad, not just for Mr. Kirk, but I think for this country.
Yeah.
I think, the one thing that makes this country great, one of the things is our ability to espouse our own ideas and discuss freely and openly debate even controversial topics, regardless of what side of the issue you may fall on. And I think that this country should celebrate the diversity of ideas and the diversity of positions, and
like it has for generations.
And that's what's made us the greatest country in the world, is that we're free to disagree. We're free to state our opinion, whether it be against the government or whether it be against fellow citizens. We have the right as American citizens to openly debate and discuss the most controversial topics. And Charlie Kirk, regardless of whether you agreed with his political leanings or not, he was on the forefront of creating this open discussion. And I think when it's such a political and openly visible political assassination, I mean, that's the first time in our lifetimes that we've seen that. I mean, we've witnessed attempts, right? Like with President Trump, but to see it in this day and age happen in front of our eyes just because somebody disagreed with somebody's beliefs and opinions, it's a sad day for this country.
It's kind of interesting. I was reading something over the weekend, and it talks about kind of how our generation, those younger, those a little bit older, we're somewhat experiencing this for the first time, right? In the 60s, you had the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, right? I mean, the list kind of goes on. Sure. Kind of capping off with the attempt on Ronald Reagan. Yep. Right? That was, I believe, 1980. Then you had a pretty large gap in time, right, from about 1980. And, there's some in between, right? You had, what was it, Gabbard. Was it Gabbard?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In Arizona, right?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Not Tulsi
No,
Gabbard.
I know you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In Arizona. Congresswoman from Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's been some sporadic ones,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing like a president or a civil rights leader,
Right.
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are. We've got an assassination attempt on Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the killing of a beloved family man, a man of God. What I feel is the first Christian martyr of our time, if you really think about it. Guy who walked the walk, from all accounts. You really don't run into anybody that knew the guy that said he didn't walk the walk. But here we are kind of experiencing that for the first time. I don't want to take us too far out of bounds, but Mike, you mentioned something earlier, right? Mm-hmm. I think some of the things that people have had the hardest time with, and I think this can steer us into a little bit of an legal analysis, is the responses that we're seeing out there floating around online and in the public space as to the death of Charlie Kirk, and just really kind of how desensitized and horrific they are. And me personally, there was the pretext of this, right, with the United Healthcare CEO that was shot, Mr. Thompson.
Right.
And just kind of that outpouring for Mangione. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
And say what you want, right? And this might come off a little bit cold and callous, but people don't have as much sympathy for a CEO of a healthcare company. Nobody really likes health insurance, right? But a lot of people, and I have to say, me included, I wasn't as, I don't think it's right, but I didn't have quite the visceral reaction to seeing people cheering it on, right? And it I hate to say, just us as a society, not us, but as a society as a whole, we kind of put the stamp of approval. Like, hey, it's not out of bounds to talk about it like this. It's not out of bounds to criticize it like this. So then all of a sudden you have this happen on the back of this, and now you've got these guys that, they have nothing going on for themselves, or they thought they were destined to be good members of society or whatever. Life doesn't quite work out the way they want it to. This guy ends up living with a transvestite. And next thing you know, he picks up a gun, and in a moment of, attempted infamy, he pulls the trigger and kills, one of the best of us. But in my opinion, I think the groundwork was laid from a societal standpoint by the failure of society to condemn that act. There were some people out there doing it, but as a whole, I think there was kind of a pass given for it.
Yeah, I just think, there's a lot of in politics we can disagree on. I think,
Yeah.
I think it's, even if you're on the same side of the aisle, like there's probably disagreements even within that aisle, but there's always this line with humanity, I think, that regardless of what your politics are, we know it's, it's why it's a pretty much common law everywhere that murder is bad, right? And
no matter who it is.
Yeah, to your point, with the CEO, with the healthcare industry, still, guy doing his job, whether you agreed with it or not, just walking out in broad daylight gets murdered. And a lot of people in the country were okay with that, celebrating that Mangione
Celebrating
guy,
it.
making memes, saying he's, attractive, all these. It's just like, it's almost sickening,
It's sickening.
And then now somebody like Charlie Kirk, yeah, I agree. It's a little bit easier to relate to because he is a family man. I'm a Christian as well. I can identify as that. And see all that and watching his videos. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with everything he's ever said, but it was never to a point where, man, this guy deserves, death, and where's that line drawn now that we're desensitized? Because this is available to everybody now.
Yep.
Everybody has a podcast, everybody's online, everybody's saying their views, and people say stupid stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean they deserve to die,
Well, let's take it into the legal realm. Go ahead.
Well, before we get there, just, you mentioned the kind of the visceral reaction that we got from the Charlie Kirk assassination that happened last week. In my view, the distinction between what happened to the healthcare CEO versus Charlie Kirk is, in the healthcare scenario, who knows what the motives were there, right? It could have been, in the shooter's opinion, that this was a chance to right a wrong, right? Because as the CEO of a health insurance company, you can have a direct impact on somebody's lives.
Yep.
Right? Whether it be denying coverage for cancer care or denying some sort of medical procedure that is required. I think just generally speaking, that assassination, while certainly condemnable and should be condemned, could be viewed by the general public as an act of sort of vigilantism, if you will, right? To at least in an attempt to right a wrong, regardless of how skewed that logic may have been. When I juxtapose that with what happened to Charlie Kirk wasn't in charge of anything. He was in charge of himself and his own opinions, and he stated his opinions publicly to generate debate and to move America forward. There was no reason for him to be assassinated outside of his opinions.
I think
none whatsoever.
Devil's advocate would say, yes, he was in charge of something. He was in charge of Turning Point USA, and he was having such a profound effect on changing people's opinions and making people open up their minds to traditional beliefs, Christian values, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it. Right?
Sure, but at the end of the day, those are opinions.
100%. But I think that's why, in the mind of a sicko, it was because he was so effective.
Right.
It was because he was so elegant in the way that he spoke.
Sure.
Because he was making an actual difference, right?
Sure.
I'm not going to say it's because of Charlie Kirk that the White House flipped red in 2024. But what I will say is I think he had a significant impact on the youth vote.
Sure.
In 2024.
Well, he was a great orator, and he could speak logic to complicated issues.
Yeah.
And I think people, even opposing his ideals, had a difficulty dealing with the logic that he would use in his arguments. And I think, in the law, in the practice of law, it's difficult to argue with logic, right? And unfortunately for Mr. Kirk and for his family, he was making these arguments in the court of public opinion, not in the court of law, right?
Yep.
Like what we do on a daily basis, we often have disagreements with other people, but at the end of the day, logic largely controls. And I think that sometimes when logic isn't necessarily on your side, it becomes very frustrating.
100%.
And I think this is kind of the personification of that frustration when they decided when they can't argue with them, eliminate them, which is a horrendous mindset. And those who think that that's acceptable in our society, those who think that it's acceptable to handle it that way should be condemned as well.
Absolutely. And I can't I almost never agree with Laura Loomer, but I don't know if you have seen, but they've actually started and it's her and a couple other elected officials. They've started a place where you can report people that espouse these things online, and they actually basically take their messages, forward them to employers, magnify them. I think that is a great public service.
Sure.
Right? Instead of going out and attacking these people, no, send it here and send it to the people that decide whether or not these people have jobs. And I've seen some sick stuff, especially, I mean, a lot of it's teachers, but a lot of it's the healthcare industry. And there have been some of these comments where people have actually said, if I was the doctor or I was the nurse, I would pretend like I didn't know what I was doing and let this person die.
Wow.
That's great. They should have their medical license taken away immediately.
100%.
Immediately.
If you say that about anybody, I mean, that is just a complete violation of the Hippocratic Oath.
Of course. I
kind
mean,
of
could you
sicko?
imagine?
Yeah.
That would be like if, as lawyers, we have a fiduciary obligation to our client, right? Just like doctors have taken a Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, right? How is that any different than violating their oath? And if you're not competent to uphold your oath, you shouldn't be in the business of practicing medicine. That's outrageous that people are doing that. But even on a personal level, I've seen people, I've got thousands of Facebook friends, and I've seen people that have celebrated this, and I've immediately disassociated myself with those individuals because this is an indictment. Regardless of your political beliefs, this is a societal problem. If you think it's okay to commit open murder and are praising the efforts of a killer simply because you disagree with the speaker's political beliefs, that's unbelievable to me.
And if you truly want America to be a great place or to get better, to move forward, regardless of what your political views are, like that type of feeling, that of a toxic sickness, like that's not going to do that. Like that's going to just divide the country even further because you're sicko that believes in, that
100%.
death is okay.
100%.
In what world is that okay? Like, what does that mean? If you say this is okay, you're putting the stamp on anybody that you disagree with on a political from a political standpoint of being killed.
100%. 100%. And
where do you go from there?
And again, from my perspective, let's change the scenario.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that this happened to some sort of, I don't know what the right word for it is, but a Democratic supporter mouthpiece with a megaphone kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'd be saying the same thing.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's an apolitical issue.
It did happen. There was a Minnesota. The former Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, in Minnesota about 3 months ago, was gunned down by a lunatic. The guy was, I don't want to get in like the specifics of it, but it's kind of a weird one. The guy was appointed to some boards by multiple governors within the state. I think they had something to do with job creation. But the point is, right, he was kind of politically connected. Mm-hmm. He ran some kind of military contractor group in a country in Africa. He kind of had a weird background, but he went off the rails. He killed the former Speaker of the House there. And then he gunned down another member of Congress up there, but I believe that her and her husband survived. But when that happened, it was horrific, right? The governor of Pennsylvania, his house was set on fire. Man tried to kill him, I think, 3 or 4 months ago as well. Set his house on fire. Me personally, and I'm sure you might be able to find a red herring out there, but I don't remember anybody, anywhere coming out and saying that is okay. These people were horrible people. Mm-hmm. I don't remember that, and not seriously, not trying to make it political, but I don't understand why. I guess I say I don't understand why, but I guess if you espouse those beliefs, and you listen to people that are standing up every day saying this person's a Nazi, this person's a racist, et cetera, if you truly believe that, I guess you can, it's not right. But that's why it's so dangerous to talk like that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think, to be fair, like I say, I don't know these people as well. I think that's part of it probably. They're just not as I guess famous or however you want to say it, polarizing, but it still brings out a good point. I still didn't hear any blip about this. I did hear about these assassins. I kind of knew about them, but I didn't know necessarily who they were. But yeah, you don't remember. I don't remember anything like that coming out. Charlie Kirk's a little bit more.
It is
well known, but still.
And just on a light moment, I guess the closest thing you could say to it is when Nancy Pelosi's husband, the homosexual, broke into his house with a hammer, and but that was just weird. And there was some stuff going back and forth. People made light of it, but I don't remember anybody truly, saying that it was okay.
Yeah, there was some jokes.
The circumstances were a little suspicious.
Well,
but
yeah, and I mean, my view on this, just zooming out a little bit, is I think we've gotten to a place in this country where you're either pro-Democrat or pro-Republican, right? It's pick a side. And the challenge with that is that we no longer look at issues objectively. It's we follow the leader, so to speak, right? Whatever our political affiliation's position is on it, that's my position on it. And I think that's a challenge. And you and I have talked about this privately, about kind of how you're either you're on one side or the other. And the challenge is my fear for this country is that we're getting to a place where it's win at all cost, consequences be damned.
Yep.
And I think this is just the most horrific, but the latest in a long line of win at all cost mentality. If you're on, the Democrat side or you're on the Republican side, right. and it's a sad place to be, because I think Americans are, we get so caught up on what side we're on and what we should say that we no longer think about issues on an individual issue basis, and it's identity politics with real consequence now, and that's a problem.
And that was a consequence. Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about? Because I really don't know how I feel about this. Still making up my mind. I think I know how I feel, but the publicizing of the actual shooting. And we talk about desensitizing.
Yeah, to be honest, I never agree with it. I kind of hate that these videos are out there.
I think I hate it too.
I don't like even, it's just it's
we
tough
can pull
to
it
see. Up
right now, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I think it goes towards that's why one of the reasons why I think people get desensitized is too easy just to see it. And then just out of respect for the family and stuff too, I think it's just not something that needs to be blasted. And once it's on the internet, unfortunately, it's there forever. So it's tough to see. But anytime there's any tragedy, it's really hard for me to even want to look at any of that stuff.
Well, I think the good news is they caught the sick son of a bitch. He's in jail. They have announced the charges today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a list of what they charged him with?
Yeah, so it's Utah law, so it's a little different, but...
Well, they've got the firing squad out there in Utah, I believe.
Yeah, so they did aggravated murder, which I've never heard of. I don't think we have that in Florida, but it's essentially the highest level of homicide you can have.
Awesome.
It's essentially first-degree murder, but there has to be some additional circumstances like killing a political figure, risking children, or things like that, I think, during the act of shooting. Mm-hmm. They've charged him with witness tampering, actually, because his partner, infamous partner in this, there's messages where he's messaging that partner to hide things, and instructing that partner if the cops come to not speak with them and tell them you don't know anything. Mm-hmm. And I guess the law enforcement was able to get hold of these messages, and they charged him with witness tampering, obstruction of justice. I think there's also a charge of a violent act in front of a child.
That's an interesting one. I don't think we have that in Florida either, do we?
I don't know off the top. I'm sure there's something similar, but essentially, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a murder, but there obviously that was the crime in this, and there was children around. So there's a plethora of different charges, but obviously we know the one that is the most obvious is that the murder charge.
Well, I find it very interesting and satisfying that I believe that Utah is the only state that still allows for the firing squad to carry out death sentence executions.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that about Utah, but
yeah, it's kind of interesting. They've had some recent cases, but to me, and I don't want to take this into a weird place, but talking about Luigi, talking about this guy, there's got to be bigger consequences, worse consequences for people that carry out these acts. I think obviously due process is owed, but justice must be swift. And I guess really at the end of the day, without getting weird, justice must be swift, right? What you don't want is a long carried out, like the Boston bomber.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy killed people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when was the Boston bombing? That had to be like 15, 20 years, 15 years ago. Boston bombing. And that guy is still sitting in jail.
Yeah.
When was this? April 15th, 2013? 12 years ago. Still sitting in jail.
Yeah, that's
And I think he was sentenced to the death penalty under federal law, I believe.
Oh, so they already had his case. He's just sitting on appeal.
On appeal, I mean, it seems like generally speaking, I mean, most people are on death row for decades.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating part with the system. It's tough because what you just said, due process, you want to be able to have your due process, but at the same time, there are certain acts and things that happen, and we do 12 years go by this guy.
We do a pretty good job in Florida, better job than most states. But just in my opinion, public policy standpoint, if there is a elevated charge that you can add to a murder, that aggravated charge should carry some kind of expediency, because I think it's important not just to punish the individual and deter the next, but it allows for closure and healing in a situation like this, the country, society.
Sure.
To say that you can't do this and get away and go sit in jail and write books and make money and have pen pals, watch TV every day, play your little video games in your cell. I mean, that person should rot. And they should, I don't want to get into that, but they should not be there for an extended period of time.
I agree, especially in a circumstance such as this where it's clearly premeditated.
Yes.
I mean, when whoever this was, whatever his name is, and I don't, even if I knew it, I wouldn't say it, just to not give him any credit, or not to shed light on him. Whoever did this, if it's premeditated like that, then to your point, justice needs to be swift. It needs to be certain. You know, I think it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, "Justice delayed is justice denied."
Yep.
And when we talk in terms of justice, it's not justice for the defendant; it's justice for the family, right? And the way that the family gets justice is for this individual to be convicted, sentenced, and his sentence carried out swiftly.
Yeah. And you can provide for appeals, honestly, in my opinion, on an expedited basis.
As they should be.
It should be. It doesn't have to be dragged out, right?
Right.
And I think everybody within the judicial system would be okay with pushing their case back a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it was, right? To speed this up.
Yeah, especially on narrow cases like this,
yes,
with specific facts where it's this egregious. I think that makes sense. You know, obviously you due process on everything else where you want to, and not saying no due process on this as well, but I agree with the expedite in that, because I think that is a crutch that those defendants will rely on for sure too. And and to your point, not just the families though, but also what you said, like to society, it's closure and it's justice for everybody. Because it's basically saying we won't stand for this as a society.
Right. Well, I think, especially given the nature of what happened, right? Like this is a public execution. There needs to be public justice.
Yes.
And it needs to happen swiftly. Right? Like it needs to,
people can't feel like they can get away with it.
100%. Because that's going to breed, unfortunately, copycats. And if, it's hard to fathom that this guy didn't know what was coming to him, right? He knew. He made a decision. He was willing to give up his life to assassinate Charlie Kirk, as twisted as that may be. Well, he knew what he signed up for, so give it to him.
Give it to him. Well, I think this kind of transitions us into the next topic I wanted to hit. Charlie Kirk always had, security detail with him, but there have been some comments that it was lax. I personally am a big proponent of being able to protect yourself. I'm a big proponent of being able to take care of oneself, right? There's personal responsibility. And I think, like I just said, a big part of personal responsibility is personal protection. Depending on how you look at it, there was a big win for gun advocates in the state of Florida last week. Did you guys see this?
I did.
Yeah, I heard about it.
I did see this.
So now in the state of Florida, even though there is typically when a ruling comes down, a law won't be in effect, i.e. police won't enforce it until the appeals window has closed. But the instruction that has came down is that the current Attorney General of the state of Florida is not going to appeal. So it has gone into effect. There is now open carry in the state of Florida. Now, I'll let you guys talk a little bit to the limitations if you want. But essentially, we're permitted on public property for sure, and we're permitted on private property. You can now openly display a firearm, i.e. you can carry a firearm almost wherever you want on public property.
Right. On your hip.
Or on your back.
Yeah, sure.
Me personally, I think this is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I understand how people can feel differently. But I think that more guns breeds less violence. I think when people feel that they are the only ones armed and they can go into a space and they can do whatever they want without having to face consequences, i.e. somebody else with a gun, they're more apt to do harm. As opposed, if I go into a mall and I want to, if I go into a mall, if I'm somebody who wants to go into a mall and commit a mass shooting, right, am I more likely to go into that mall knowing that everybody is unarmed or knowing that everybody else is armed?
Right, and to your point, I think there's pros and cons to both sides. I think, but to your point, like I went to Texas a few years ago, and I don't know if they had open carry back then or if they do now, but they definitely open carry there. Yep. And I'd go to the gas station, and there was people with almost everybody had a gun on their hip. And I'll be honest, when I first got there, even from Florida, I was a little caught off guard, but I think, in a grand scheme of things, like, I was more careful about how I approach people, and then I think also
more respectful, right?
And me, I'm probably respectful regardless. I think that's how I was raised.
Well, not you, but it breeds respect.
But I agree. I think people will be more respectful to each other because whether you're naturally like that or you're just, hey, I'm not going to talk to somebody if they got a gun on their hip like that, But I agree to those points, and I did feel some sense of security around there. I think it just all goes down to the point, like, as long as they're legally allowed to own a gun,
yes,
I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yes.
Obviously, they're still barred from bringing guns into the courthouse, bars, schools, so don't feel like you can go ahead and do that. You're going to get arrested.
And if you're a private business, you don't want them in your private property or on your private property, you can say no, right? I think that's reasonable, right?
Yeah. If you're a felon, obviously you shouldn't be owning those, stuff like that.
Correct. But if you're one of those folks that would fall under the red flag laws, you can't have them as well. Like it's logical to me, right?
Yep.
And if you're the kind of crazy person that's walking around on the street just for the sake of walking around on the street with a firearm, I think the argument could be made that you shouldn't have one either. And I think that would fall within the red flag laws, arguably, right? So I really don't think, as this plays out, there would be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like Mike said, I think we need to be very clear here. While the law is that it's an open carry state, there are, just like with every other amendment that we have to our Constitution, there are limitations thereupon. You can't bring it to a school, you can't bring it to a bar, you can't bring it to college campuses, and you can't bring it to a courthouse. There's other limitations in there. So don't construe with what we're saying as you can carry a firearm anywhere you go. I just saw that, like, for example, Disney World, right? Disney World, one of our main attractions here in the state, is privately owned, right? Or it's a private company, right? Yep. They have the right to trespass you, so you can't bring your AK-47 to Disney World.
And I couldn't agree more. I mean, and some
Sure.
people get upset about that. They think they should be able to bring them anywhere. Well, if you really want to and they don't let you, don't go to Disney World.
Exactly.
Right. You got a
know?
choice.
You got a choice.
Nobody's forcing you to go see Mickey.
Exactly. Exactly.
I can't stand people like that. But I see it both ways.
And I will say this, though.
No, I do too.
Even though they announced that it's, I guess the governor, announced that it's law and that they're not going to enforce, there are some sheriff's office, like Pinellas County, looks like they're saying it. They're standing ground saying it doesn't apply statewide. I don't know what that's going to mean in the long run.
Good luck, Pinellas County.
Right, but
it means Pinellas County is going to get sued when they arrest somebody for open carrying.
Smart use of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Pinellas County.
so we'll see if there's other counties that follow. But I know in Jacksonville they're definitely going with what the governor said.
It's very, very interesting. And I think what's kind of more interesting that people don't necessarily understand is where this ruling came from, right? It's kind of interesting because a couple of years ago, there were some big pushes in the legislature to propose an open carry bill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was that shooting on Florida State campus that kind of transpired around the legislative session when it happened, and naturally, this is going to conspiracy land or not, but you have a mass shooting at a school at the same time they're trying to push a bill through. The bill doesn't go through, right?
Right.
Big surprise. I don't know. For all you conspiracy theorists out there might be something there, but I'm not saying that.
Well, it's political pressure.
Needless to say, it didn't go through. But what I find interesting is that this ruling that just came out last week stemmed from the 2002 arrest. 23 years ago, right? This case has been making its way through. This is what I think we're talking about when we talk about justice denied or justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah, expedite that one.
2002 arrest of Stan McDaniels, a candidate at the time for Escambia County Commission. McDaniels, with a copy of the U.S. Constitution in his hand, was standing at a major intersection on July 4th in downtown Pensacola, waving at people driving past. He had a loaded handgun tucked inside of his pants and a holster that was clearly visible. McDaniels, who had a concealed weapons permit, kind of funny, you really don't need those anymore, told police he wanted his case to go to the Supreme Court. McDaniels was arrested several days later and was eventually convicted of violating Florida's open carry ban. He was sentenced to probation and community service, but his sentence was stayed while he appealed his case. The First District Court of Appeal, based in Tallahassee, so it took him almost 23 years to get a rule. This isn't the Supreme Court. Based in Tallahassee, concluded the law should be struck down due to rulings from the nation's highest court, i.e. the federal Supreme Court, that laid out a framework on how to evaluate gun restrictions. They ruled the state had failed to show that the ban was consistent with historic firearm regulation. The appeals court made this decision even though the state Supreme Court in 2017 upheld the ban. That's an interesting issue there on it alone. Ashley Moody, our former attorney general, who is now a senator, had defended the law when she was Florida's attorney general. But Utmeyer, the current attorney general, announced last week that he would not appeal the decision because he agreed with the court's ruling. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yep.
What I find kind of funny and ironic is the announcement from the Ron DeSantis office about the tax holiday on essentially guns and ammo and fishing gear.
Well, it's a Second Amendment tax holiday.
Yes,
so anything related to hunting, and he threw in fishing as well. So guns, ammunition between, what was it, September 15th and the end of this year is tax free.
I love that.
Because if you were going to buy, do it now.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing, right? I had some friend of mine send me a couple guns to buy the other day, and I'm like, why are you sending this to me? Oh, it said no taxes on these guns through the end of the year.
Right.
Got to get the deal.
Okay. Right. Let's see, what are the specifics of this? Let me.
I think it's that simple.
Yeah, through December 31st.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the school supply tax.
Yes.
Thing, but for guns.
But get your guns, ammo, and fishing gear.
Right.
You got to love that, man.
Especially in Florida. It's good. A lot of people hunt. A lot of people fish.
We're running out of hunting land. I've got that 300 acres out by Tallahassee. I got to take you guys out there. I'm going out this weekend. Bow hunting season opened up last week. Florida bow hunting for deer. Okay. I missed it because I was out of town. But I'll be going out there this weekend. Got a new crossbow.
Nice.
Ready to try it out.
Nice.
I could see you out there.
Oh, dude, it's even easier. I mean, it's got a
I know
scope
you
on it,
probably
the whole 9
you got
yards.
nice stuff. I'm thinking like you got a bow and arrow from back in the day.
One of the guys that works for me was out there, and it's funny. There's like trail cams out there. When they're better than trail cams. I mean, they really capture it. And I was watching one, and it was on the stand he was on, and here comes the deer. He's barely out of the woods. Boom! Right over the deer. Deer takes off in the woods. Just throwing arrows into the woods. It was funny. And, it's a shame we missed, they opened up bear hunting season here in Florida this year. It's the first time in forever, since I know, that you can actually apply to get a permit, kind of like an alligator tag.
Sure.
To hunt a bear. And we missed it by like 4 miles. And I can tell you, we probably have more bear out there. People don't realize how many Florida bear
it's a
there
ton
are.
of bear.
It's a ton. Like people think there's some kind of endangered species. No, it's like the alligator. Like, yeah, maybe in the 70s alligators were endangered.
I don't know. They're hanging out in San Marco all the time.
They're all over the place.
It's always on the news.
I think
but they don't
in
realize,
North Florida there's more.
Yes, but they don't realize the devastation that it causes when you let these habitats of animals with no natural predators run out of control.
Well, you're seeing it in the Everglades now with the pythons.
Yeah, people don't. They think they're doing a good thing. And the interesting thing with the bear tags is there's been all of these activists that have kind of essentially are applying for the tags, taking the tags to essentially block
Not
people.
use them.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, right? All right, I think we can probably put a cap on it for today, guys. What do you think? I think we did good.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time talking
There's a
about
lot
our
of
man
serious
Charlie Kirk.
stuff. So
There's a lot of serious stuff.
But
a
I think
lot of
it needed
political
to be
stuff,
said,
but-
though. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's directly relevant to what's happening, and it's on everybody's minds. I mean, you can't go on Facebook without seeing something related to it, and other public figures are talking about what happened. And
I'll be honest. No, I'm not going to say it. But I shed a tear when it happened.
well, I think we all do, and I think I know people that are far left leaning that are upset about this because this issue is bigger than right side of the aisle or left side of the aisle. This is an American issue, and I think that's abundantly clear. And you're either pro-American or anti-American, and I think the public execution of somebody who you disagree with is anti-American.
Could not agree more.
And we didn't mention it either, but obviously we had the school shooting the same week too. It's been a tough time, so obviously that's. Yeah. It's some tough topics to talk about, but I do agree it was important to talk about and at least share our views on that.
It was good we talked about it. Earlier before the podcast, we learned some new things about Will.
That's right. Yeah,
it's been a good day.
Yeah,
it's been a good day. Well, we're going to go ahead and sign off here on the wonderful podcast, allegedly live from the Campione Law. Well, not live. Maybe live someday. From the Campione Law Studios.
Live-ish.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in here for episode 6. Please like, subscribe. Next week, we're going to come back to you for episode 7. One of the new things we want to do here, if you've got anything you want us to talk about, if you've got any questions about the law, if you've got any questions about cases that you may have, anything, really, pop culture, the law, whatever, right? Shoot us an email, will@campionelawpa.com. You send it in, we'll talk about it. We'll see you next week.